some people need drugs, some people need zombie takeout, and some surgical assistance.
What's up? Welcome to episode 273 of Zombie
Takeout,
the B-Movie Cult Movie Podcast. I'm Uncle John.
And I'm Scotto.
And before we get to this week's movie, we've got some listeners submitted all on the trailer from one of this week's movies, specifically Frankenhooker. Got quite a reaction. Danny Meeks on Google Plus said, great flick. Bruce Sardi said, yes, but one has to wonder about the relationship between this and the creators of Weird Science. And Richard Hawes said, love this when it came out, had a poster from the video shop on my wall. I was only 12. Richard Hawes' comment originally made me feel old until I realized, well, yeah, we were only like 17 or 18 at the time.
If that even.
Yeah. Well, 90. We were 17 and 18 respectively. And with regard to what Bruce said, of course, both were very influenced by Bride of Frankenstein. And both were very clear about that. And Weird Science was 5 years before Frankenhooker, so I think Frankenhooker borrowed from it a little bit.
Well, I think more so Reanimator than
yes, definitely. Reanimator was all over this.
Someone speculates that on IMDb that the name of the lead character, Jeffrey, is a nod
Jeffrey
to
Combs,
Mr. Combs.
Well, it does reference a lot of things, but we'll get to that. I was just going to say, I was writing up the episode description, and I specified that the movie about the clown wasn't Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and I'm kind of tempted to specify that the movie about the mad scientist isn't Reanimator. Anyway, without any further ado, on to the first of this week's movies, which is from 2009, Gitchy. Of course, that brings us to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by this little piggy. You don't want to know where he's gone.
And also brought to you by Clownmouth. You never know where it's been. All right, so these are really impromptu plot summaries, if ever.
Especially this one. How do you describe it?
This one I just finished watching 20 minutes ago, maybe.
Uh-huh.
So let's see. We have parents are murdered. I can't say brutally because they seem to enjoy it.
Yeah.
But they are tickled to death at the same time in their bed, and we're left with two devastated kids trying to get over this. The son, however, is hearing this clown laughing and taunting him pretty much for a while now. You
buried the lead a little bit. They were tickled to death by an enormous clown.
Well, you don't really see the clown all that much in the opening scene.
Okay.
He takes a little bit of the Jaws principle, and I mean, you kind of see glimpses of who's tickling them or what's going on, but he kind of, and of course, it is this clown, Gitchy, and he's in this kid's head, and he's drawing him, and he soon appears, despite all the medication they're trying to pump into him.
And all of the people speculating that Gitchy was just in his head.
And at first you kind of think he's still in his head. You're not sure what's going on until he starts getting other people. Then you're also thinking, well, wait a minute, maybe he's just taken on the persona and he's going out to do it. But then they come back to him and he's still just lying on the floor of the basement. Oh, no, it's not him. And yes, so Gitchy goes on a bit of a tickle spree, implying that he's killed some. Some of them, I'm not sure, died, but most likely they did.
Yeah.
I think the only one he spared.
Well, David, the one who was traumatized by the murder of the parents, I think was the only one who really survived him.
Right.
Without the attack being interrupted anyway.
Right. So he goes on a spree, killing the the friend and the
Mm-hmm.
psychiatrist, and then they well, they band together, the
Mm-hmm.
survivors, and go on the offensive to find out he is he's pretty much a ghost.
Yeah, of a clown who lived in the house previously and was. Well, I'm not going to get into the backstory. It was rather amusing, but
Right, right. The harbinger,
uh
it turns out to be nuttier than the actual
yeah.
killer, which is a great twist.
Mm-hmm.
That usually the harbinger is, oh, you're already,
Right.
and then this is like, wait, you.
And
That's great. Uh,
hilarity ensues.
yes, hilarity ensues.
Now, this was written by Thomas Norman and co-directed by Thomas and Lenny Rivera. Should
I,
point out, just in full disclosure, we both know Tom. We went to college with him. We knew him at OCC. He was
I was disappointed that Thomas was not in this because whenever am I going to have a chance to see someone I've acted with
yeah.
opposite of on the screen,
Mm-hmm. We knew him at OCC. I hung out with him quite a bit on campus. He was in the student theater company. We're both Facebook friends with him now. In fact, he messaged me to ask if we'd review this. However, of course, this will not affect our review. And I really need to point that out in this case because this movie was damn near made for us.
Well, at first I was worried because the entire intro was all of that tickle tickle giggle giggle echo stuff, and
Yeah.
I was like, motherfucker, if this entire half hour is that giggle echo, I'm going to hunt you down, Thomas. And I will. But no, it was not.
And actually, the evil clown laugh kind of replaces the opening theme, which I thought was kind of interesting.
It's just perfect. It's better than whatever noise that is that Jason had.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't even make any sense whatever they did in Friday the 13th.
Yeah.
And yet it's just kind of the trademark that everybody accepts it.
Yeah.
But this was much better than that because it's creepy as fuck. I mean, that's the point.
And this movie largely revolves around a clown tickling people's feet. So just be warned, if you have problems with clowns or feet, this is not the movie for you.
I think that's the idea, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you have problems with clowns or getting tickled,
Mm-hmm.
this movie has to be utter torture.
Yeah. Fortunately, I'm one of the few people who is completely ambivalent about clowns. I'm not afraid of them. I don't particularly like them or particularly dislike them.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was a clown for Halloween a couple times.
Now, overall, I loved this one, but I do have a couple of questions. What kind of shrink makes house calls? The psychologist comes to David's house. I've never heard of a shrink making house calls.
Damn, you're gonna nitpick the shrink. Well, anyway,
I gotta nitpick this thing,
I kind of gathered that she was very much a friend of the family.
Okay, perhaps that was the case. Okay.
And since the parents got killed, everybody was very concerned about them.
And also, he spits out a pill into the sink because he's supposed to take his meds. And
I missed that.
Of course, they have to show that he's not taking his meds. They could have come up with a more clever way of showing it that would have actually hidden the fact that he wasn't taking his meds. Again, I got to nitpick this thing just because I enjoyed it so much. I have to find it in as much fault as I can.
Yeah, honestly, wouldn't it have made more sense if he had still been taking the meds? Although that was the false lead.
Yeah.
To think
that he was off his
really
meds, so that's why he's imagining Gitchy, right? On the positive side, of course, the performances and production on this were far better than just about any other indie short I've seen.
It was a little shaky in the beginning, some of the performances, but I think when this wound up, you're along for the ride, and so is the cast.
Okay. And the only real criticism I have, there's a point where we're following the sister who's with her boyfriend, and she's talking about David's situation. And we keep flashing back to David, just laughing and thinking about the clown. It kind of hurt the pacing a little bit for just that one scene, I thought.
Are you talking about the scene where the sister is with the boyfriend?
Yeah. And we keep going back to David laughing and thinking about Gitchy. Or not laughing, but screaming, actually. He's laughing.
That is really where things start turning, where it's like shaky before that, and then that's the point where this just launches in.
Mm-hmm.
And So I could see why it would kind of go back and forth like that.
Yeah.
Because you really are jumping into this world after that.
I just think it could have been done a little smoother.
Everything before that is, this is a normal story, where it maybe the kid killed his parents.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point, it's no, this is a ghost story, right, or whatever the fuck.
Whatever the Gitchy was.
Yeah. Whatever the fuck Gitchy was. And and it's about to become as disturbing as hell.
Yeah, because Gitchy attacks David, and up until this point, I was kind of buying into just a straightforward horror film, granted about a tickling clown.
And that was like the scene in The Wizard of Oz where the door opens and turns into color.
Exactly.
Only in a much more disturbing way.
Oh, yeah. Because Gitchy attacks David, and I was laughing during this scene, which didn't feel right. I actually have in my notes, not sure if that was good or bad. And then Gitchy starts drooling on his feet, and he pulls out a can of whipped cream.
Right.
After I watched the movie, I messaged Tom to tell him I enjoyed it. And I said, maybe if you'd, taken the extra step and made a full-on foot fetish movie, it could have been a bit more lucrative. He responded along the lines of, they couldn't have gotten that kind of movie into as many festivals.
Oh.
And so the foot fetish references are deliberate. Like after that, there are a ton of like gratuitous foot shots.
Of course. Yeah, you definitely noticed that. Just everyone just casually sitting with their feet up to the camera lens practically.
Cracked me up every time.
Oh, yeah, same here.
And there's a scene early on with Kim, his sister, David's sister, and her friend Becky, where they're talking about David's situation and a few other things. And I thought it was me at first, and maybe it is me, but it kind of felt like the beginning of a porn scene, like they're just about to kiss.
Oh, yeah.
You felt that too? Okay. So that might be intentional. I thought maybe I just watched too much porn, so I was kind of reading into it. But after my exchange with Thomas about the foot fetish thing, I kind of wonder if it was intentional. Now, I am a little curious how David survived Gitchy. Because it was a full-on attack that was not at all interrupted. Gitchy had his way with him. Read into that, please. And David somehow survives it. And he's like the only one who survives that kind of attack.
Yeah, that is kind of confusing. Is Gitchy just toying with him? Mm-hmm. Did he want to torment him some more?
Maybe he's trying to turn David into the next Gitchy.
The apprentice.
Yeah. Just trying to drive him mad enough to the point where he will start, tickling people on his own. And of course, this all leads to the sister and the boyfriend attacking Gitchy. And I loved the sound effects when they were beating him up. They've got this club and this acoustic guitar, and they're attacking him, and
the sound of the guitar hitting.
The most ridiculous sound effects. Loved that. Kind of hated seeing the guitar damaged, but it was a, cheap piece of shit. So didn't hurt that bad.
It's one of the similarities with the next movie we're going to do tonight. Mm-hmm. And like a lot of the action scenes are just close quarter shots.
Right.
Where it's just swinging away and sound effects to convey what's going on.
Mm-hmm. And of course you think Gitchy's dead, but he comes back because horror cliche. And then it gets really good. Because the Harbinger, who'd been bugging the sister throughout the movie, talking about, what is it? He had this little rhyme about Gitchy. I can't recall it offhand.
Oh, I know. It's it was going to be what I learned, but I heard something else. Okay. Well, you see, he don't say much, but he likes to touch.
He likes to tickle. He likes
to tickle. He loves to touch.
Yeah. He keeps saying this, and then he shows up at the end after. Well, once Gitchy has come back.
The problem with that rhyme is, of course, Gitchy said an awful fucking lot for someone who didn't say much.
Yeah, this is true. Well, he doesn't say it at the beginning, though. He just kind of laughs and says Gitchy, Gitchy at first.
True, but then he starts like, oh, look at this and look at that. Yeah. Who do we have here? And what's going on?
And so Gitchy comes back, and the Harbinger shows up, And the Harbinger dispatches with Gitchy in a really interesting way. And I kind of want to leave this alone.
Yes.
Because, I spoiled the whipped cream because
you can describe that scene in perfect detail, but I don't think you could still actually prepare people for it.
For the whipped cream, yeah. Plus,
that whole attack scene.
I tend to frequent the more interesting parts of the internet, so
do you now?
It didn't faze me, but I suspect a lot of people will be just thoroughly disturbed by that. In fact, when Tom messaged me about reviewing it, he said, yeah, I'm not going to tell you much about the movie, but he said it will disturb you, and I suspect that's the scene he was talking about.
He don't talk much, you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
That Thomas...
Oh, incidentally, he does appear in the movie, not on camera, but he is on the soundtrack.
Yes.
He did the vocals for the theme song. You recognized him.
That squeal right away.
I didn't. I had to ask him about it. All right, so, sequels and remakes not really a thing for this because Gitchy is dispatched. I guess you could do a flash forward where David becomes the next Gitchy.
I would love to see a feature-length version of this.
Oh yeah, if they can bank a feature, fund a feature, that'd be awesome.
I mean, this could be fleshed out. I think there could be a lot more to this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that the beginning part especially. I mean, that's why it's not that much of a crime for the beginning to be shaky because he's only got a half an hour to go from beginning to end here.
And when it kicks in, it really kicks in. So you kind of forget that little iffy beginning.
Yeah.
So, all right. So on to Brains.
On to Brains.
I really enjoyed it. Not perfect, but damn close. I'm going 4.5.
Yeah, I'm around right there with you. I think the only problem I really had with it was, well, let's be honest. You have to be kind of participant to the act of being tickled that extensively.
Yeah.
That I mean, and maybe that's intentional. I don't know. But I would think that more people would be punching out Gitchy. I
don't know. It can be pretty debilitating. I mean, I haven't been tickled in a long time, but I do remember being kind of paralyzed by it.
Yeah, that's right. Maybe just me because I'm not that ticklish.
Perhaps.
Like maybe. Of seriously, dude, get the fuck off.
If you're not ticklish, it's not going to work. Yeah,
like there would be no laughing or squealing. So maybe I don't know.
If there's a flaw, it's that Gitchy's potential targets are limited to the truly ticklish. So you're going 4.5?
Yeah, I'm going 4.5 as well.
All right, well, let's hold off. What have we learned for both movies?
Okay.
All right, so on to the next of this week's movies, which is from 1990, Frankenhooker. Of course, that brings us to the impromptu plot summary, sponsored by Supercrack. It'll blow your mind. Literally.
And also brought to you by Jigsaw Puzzles. They're more fun when you do them with other people.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we now move, I'm guessing, further north into Jersey to the land called Ho-Ho-Kus, just north of Paramus.
Mm-hmm.
Close to the Fountains of Wayne, I imagine. All real places, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not from Jersey.
Yeah, that's kind of an odd thing this week. I mean, they're both horror comedies. They're both very twisted movies. They're also both set in Jersey. We really went back to our roots this week.
We did. You know what? Gitchy... I'm not sure. Gitchy isn't necessarily set in New Jersey,
but it was made in Jersey.
But yeah, you could tell. I mean,
there's enough Jersey accents.
That's a Jersey girl in the lead.
Yeah. On to Frankenhooker.
Yes. On to Frankenhooker. We have a young couple. The guy's a bit of an oddball who's tinkering with a brain and an eye, and
a brain with a giant eye.
Yes,
in it, yeah,
and very electronic projects, and he made his father a self-propelled lawnmower. Unfortunately, at the birthday party that he presented this self-propelled lawnmower,
the thing you can see coming a mile away,
right? that he even warns, don't stand in front of it twice. Alas, his fiancée is killed in a brutal fashion by the lawnmower. Now, our hero, I guess you'd call him that, he decides he's going to go one step further. He's operated on his fiancée in the past. They established that. I loved, by the way, the exposition in this is probably one of the funniest expositions ever delivered. Just machine gun fashion. Just, we were stating all of this stuff and we were getting it out of the way. It's delivered in that exact inflection. Hilarious. Because they knew what they were doing. And,
I've never seen a movie so in on the joke.
Right. So, yes, they established that he is operated. It is just like less than 10 minutes where they established all of this exposition that he's operated on her in the past, did a stomach staple operation because she's had a weight problem. And they're just all of these things. So he decides he's going to rebuild her. He has her head and her hand. I think that's it. Original parts. That's all he has left, a head and a hand. So, and he just decides he needs to get other parts and enough electricity, and obviously he can put her back together.
Instead of digging up thieves, he
decides he's going to go into the city, which, of course, if you live in Jersey, the city is New York.
Of course.
And, of course, Ho-Ho-Kus is right across from it. So, it's a real suburb. Everything in Jersey is called a suburb, even though there's no city, like, within an hour and a half of a lot of places. But he goes into the city back in the days where there were prostitutes in Manhattan.
It was 90 or probably 88, 89 when it was filmed, but it looked like the 70s.
Pre-Giuliani, New York.
It looked like the 70s.
Where things were real.
Yeah.
So he goes in there and he suddenly, first he has some money and then he makes super crack and comes back with a lot of money.
Well, he buys a large quantity of normal crack from a pimp and synthesizes the super crack.
Right. And he has enough money to pretty much get all the hookers into a hotel room and judge the best parts himself. And I'm thinking as I'm watching this, did we do this especially for International Women's Day?
Fortunately, it was a few days before this episode would be released.
Yeah, I mean, I know, but it was that was the night I watched it. I was like, damn, we're good humans, good Americans. And then they also made fun of, well, I don't know if they made fun of the Just Say No message the day before Nancy Reagan's funeral.
Yeah.
But, yeah, hilarious coincidences when you think about it. But anyway, I digress.
And if Lemmy, David Bowie, and Alan Rickman were still alive, that wouldn't have happened.
That's true. It all, this weird...
Bad luck did this. We didn't do this.
All right. So, he picks the best parts. But however, they discover his super crack, and there is a terrible side effect of his super crack. Although, I'm confused whether that was the intention of the super crack was just to blow them up.
Well, he knew it happened to the guinea pig.
Right.
When he tested it, so it had to be. He was
just hoping they would OD.
Yeah. I think he let them find the super crack.
Okay. Well, you would think, though, he would not want them to explode.
Well, yeah, he was telling them to stop.
Because the body parts,
yeah,
I mean...
become a little problematic to work with, yeah.
Would have been damaged if we were talking about the laws of physics. But
right.
We're you know...
Wow, I have some nitpicks, but I'll be gentle with it.
Yeah, come on. There is no picking of nits here. This is wide open, rips and tears. But anyway, where the hell was I? Oh yeah, he picked his parts. They blew up. Um, the pimp was depressed, which is one of the fucking funniest things I've ever seen in a movie. When you bitches be exploding. Exploding bitches, they're tough to get over. And so he, of course, this, Freddie Mercury pimp guy, tries to solve what's going on, but he meanwhile back in Ho-Ho-Kus, he has all of his parts, puts them together. There's a wonderful recreation of the Frankenstein.
I don't think he says she's alive.
No, he didn't do that. He didn't go full on.
It stops short of that.
But the set was pretty much.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I would say identical.
Yeah.
And the ridiculous platform that lifts out of the garage that suddenly has the ceiling that opens. Right. It's really funny stuff. And yes, so his of course. Have been funny if he misses the lightning or something. It's just like, oh, I guess it didn't work. Roll credits. Yeah. But no, it was of course successful. She is alive again, but the problem is she is the personality of the Manhattan hookers.
All of them.
And she's remembering events from the from the party that he had thrown before, and so she goes back to the pimp, and he goes after her, and of course the pimp somehow chases him back. She regains, of course, his fiance's memories, and
again, we're not going to spoil the ending.
But yes, hilarity ensues.
Now, the garage in question was intentionally 4 times as large as the exterior. The interior, I should say.
You're saying it's bigger on the inside, huh?
I wonder if it was a Doctor Who reference.
I doubt it. Doctor Who wasn't...
Well, yeah, it's true. It was really an obscure BBC thing at 90.
Yeah, although you never know. I mean, I watched... That's probably when I was watching my Doctor Who, probably a couple years before that.
Also, writer-director Frank Henenlotter improvised the basic story at the pitch. It was only after he got the okay to make the movie that he wrote the script.
Wow.
I would love to hear the improvised pitch for this movie. And I loved the opening with the brain with the eye.
The opening had a lot of rambling scientific terms that he's just there. You're kind of worried at the beginning that this is really just going to be all stupid and not enough.
But it's a brain in a tank with a giant eye that he's talking to and trying to get to follow his hand. It was hilarious. Maybe only because I knew what was coming and I knew what a red herring it was.
Well, yeah, you kind of knew that wasn't going anywhere. That was just one of his things that they had him do.
Yeah.
But you kind of worried about, if James Lorenz, if he could actually pull this off,
Although it did set something up later in the movie, because at one point he has to jab what looks like a nail file into the brain to activate something.
Oh, yeah, wait a minute. What the hell was that when he was drilling his own brain?
And later he drills into his own brain in a very specific spot to I don't know, to enhance his creativity or something, to come up with an answer for something.
I thought it was to lose his morality.
That could have been it too.
What the fuck is what? That was the craziest thing. There was no blood either. It was just he just drilled the hole in there and okay, I can do this now.
This is probably the most non-trauma film I've ever seen.
I would say. Well, that's the other thing was there was hardly that much gore to it.
Yeah. Not in the gore sense, just in the general twistedness sense.
And scoping IMDb, there's a lot of people that hate it for that reason. That absolutely hate it because there's very little gore to it.
Yeah.
Or that any attempt at gore is just over the top, camp, comical.
But that fits the movie. Like I said, they're completely in on the joke.
Right.
So they're deliberately making it as silly as possible.
It's absurd more than anything else. I think it went into the realm of the absurd.
To the point where he's actually
capital
having...
A absurd.
Yeah. To the point where he's actually having dinner with her head and severed hand after the accident.
And you knew he was going to kiss her, of course. That was probably one of the most things you saw coming from a mile away.
And I loved the horror weatherman.
Oh, yeah. I meant to look up who the hell that was, because that was probably someone.
Yeah. There's a running gag in the movie where the TV is almost a character in and of itself, which I loved. There's a scene with the horror weatherman, and there's another parody of the Morton Downey Jr. show later on in the film.
That's what confirmed that it was late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah.
Morton Downey Jr. Whatever happened to that guy?
Also, going back a tiny bit, I love the way he's just kind of muttering to himself when he's going over the plans to rebuild her. It was a minor touch, but I just really got a kick out of it.
Well, he just throws these, E equals MC square. Like, what?
And the pacing was great for the first, I'd say, 2/3 of the movie, because it takes a while for her to become the Frankenhooker and run off to New York. That doesn't happen until like 3/4 of the way through the movie. And those first 3/4 are really strong in terms of pacing. It doesn't feel like it drags at all.
Right.
She gets to the city and it kind of dragged for me.
I kind of thinking the opposite, honestly, because I think she really, you don't see much of her in the beginning. She's like wearing the dumb fat suit.
Right.
And then I loved her as the Frankenhooker.
Oh, yeah. The performance is great.
That was enough to keep me entertained. Just the whole, just doing the different personalities. It was something a touch better than you would see on Night Court.
Right, yeah.
Which
is quite good, considering how much we've raved about Night Court.
It is. And just, her whole... I think I was really surprised by her acting ability. I was not expecting to see a great performance out of her, even though it was only the last, half hour, maybe? Not even?
Up until she's back to the girlfriend and discovers her new body.
And
that reaction was a little muted for me.
The scene back in New York is hilarious because it's the pimp, the depressed pimp.
That was great, yeah. And there's a reference in this movie that bought it a brain, easily. Oh, maybe half a brain. When he's with the girls and, before they find the super croc, he says, "Go ahead and play with the dirty money." They referenced Babyface Finster. My favorite Looney Tunes. One of my favorite Looney Tunes ever.
Yeah, I should have known that's where that was from. Oh, Finster and Sons.
Check our site for the TAS ? Link in the sidebar. You'll understand that. I think it was episode 5.
That was the one with all the commercials.
Yeah.
And it was probably one of the best.
Definitely. Now, getting back to Frankenhooker.
Yes.
Why does her hair turn purple after the operation?
Because of all the estrogen goo that he was using.
Oh, okay. There actually is some logic to that. Okay.
Hence purple nipples.
Yeah, true.
There.
Uh-huh.
And I think someone in the makeup department just liked purple.
Well, yeah, and had a very enjoyable job that day. Also, I liked the scene when he punched her head off. The pimp comes back and he finds, the Frankenhooker. And he attacks her, and her head is all sutured on like Frankenstein.
Of course.
He punches her, it literally comes off except for a little bit in the back. And she spends about the next 5 minutes with her head back.
Now, not to add racism to this, but if you were, say, assembling a person, should you have tried to have made them one race?
Well, he got to use what's available and, what is viable. One of her forearms is black.
Yes.
I just assumed that, race aside, if he could have just matched the skin tone better, he would have. But, you got to use what you can.
It didn't matter because her head was so much lighter for being dead for so much longer.
Right.
Was lighter than the rest of the body anyway.
Now, the scene with the guinea pig, if I knew nothing about this movie going in, would have fucking killed me. Unfortunately, I should mention, I've seen this a number of times back in the early 90s, probably scrambled on cable. It was one of those movies. So I was aware of the exploding hookers. That's pretty much all I remembered from it. So I knew when he gave the super crack to the guinea pig what would happen. You didn't know. What was your reaction? When the guinea pig just exploded.
It was I kind of saw something like that coming.
Oh, okay, you saw it coming.
Yeah.
Now, that's got to be my one little nitpick on a scientific level. Because he's gassing the guinea pig through this tube in this open cage. Wouldn't he have gotten hit with some too? That's again, I'm nitpicking the science a little bit, just in that one little part. Because the rest of this, you can't nitpick the science.
I thought you were going to say something like, would crack really make somebody explode?
No. And speaking of just ridiculous bad science, I loved the monster. It's at the end. The monsters, I should say.
Oh my god!
And I'm not going to say more than that about them, but
that was all fucking disturbing as hell.
Yeah, how they get rid of the pimp. Yeah, the last 5 minutes when after she gets her personality back, and then what happens to Jeffrey is just it kind of makes the movie.
And they're not even 100% clear if what she did was to get back at him.
No.
Or if it was just kind of
been what was available.
All she had to do, all she could. But you kind of get the feeling that it was to get back at him.
I get the impression she did it because she had to, but she enjoyed it.
Yes, I think that nails it quite well.
Now, Frankenhooker's initial release was delayed because of difficulty obtaining an R rating from the MPAA. The director recalls that one representative of the ratings body actually said in a phone call to the production company's secretary, "Congratulations, you're the first film rated S." And the secretary said, S for sex? And the representative said, no, S for shit. To his dismay, Henenlotter's conservative parents insisted on attending the film's premiere in New York. He impressed surprise that they were not offended by it.
So what did they have to do to get an R?
I would like to know. Incidentally, if you look this movie up on YouTube, which is where I started watching it and why I was late to the show tonight, they cut about 15 minutes. I realized it when I was about 20 minutes in. That version's an hour 9. The full version's like an hour 24.
Yeah, I think that's the version I watched.
So I just thought of that when you asked what they cut. I am curious what didn't make the cut for R in this movie. All right, I'm done with my notes.
I am as well.
All right, so sequels and remakes again.
This is one they should just let go.
Oh, yeah. You don't really want to touch this one. I'm just thinking, is it possible for him to try to operate on himself?
So much of this is the personality of the film itself.
Yeah.
I mean, even like I started out really not liking, Lawrence. I don't know, as an actor. But then I think what won me over was when he was starting to do. He's like, okay.
Yeah.
While drilling his head.
I think that's when the movie really won me over, was the head drilling scene.
And he's doing Nutty Professor lines. Let me go and find somebody. He's got the headband and everything that had been used by a doctor since 1965 probably.
Yeah. All right, on to brains. I wasn't as sure about this one. I'm kind of rounding up a bit on my rating, but I'm going to go 4.5 again. It's better than a 4. I don't know if it's quite a 4.5, but I'm going to say 4.5.
I'm giving it a 5.
Oh, wow.
I think it's just completely embracing the absurdism. It's, you realize the objectification of women is quite. There's definitely a wink to it, and then the end, of course, it more than explains, why.
All right, and what have we learned?
We learned that one night in Jersey makes the hard man crumble.
And I learned that clowns are supposed to make people happy. I didn't realize that.
I also learned that prostitutes can be aggressive salespeople.
Mm. All right, so until next time when we'll be reviewing Are You Being Served? I'm referring to the movie. This is another tribute episode. We decided to push it back and not do it earlier in the year because we had already done enough tributes.
Yes.
And this is a tribute to the entire cast. We'll get into that next week.
Right.
Until then, go to zombietakeout.com, check out the album art, the episode description, of course, the episode itself, which you're already listening to. Links to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, and YouTube. Links to subscribe via RSS and iTunes. Please leave us a rating and a review on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. Also, if you enjoy the show, spread the word. Give us a little word of mouth. Of course, we appreciate all of the listeners we have, but more would be better. You'll also find the movie list, every movie we've reviewed so far, and every movie we're going to review. I think we've, at least the ones we have in order, end with Cannibal Woman in the Avocado Jungle of Death. Really looking forward to that one, given how much Mar regrets it.
Of course.
It's another one like Collision Course. You also find the request form. If you've got a movie you'd like to hear us review, please leave it on the request form. Speaking of requests, this wasn't exactly a request, but I got the idea for this one, for Frankenhooker, I should say. When Jen mentioned it on Facebook, that kind of sparked it for me, and I remember, loving watching it scrambled, so I suggested we review it.
Gitchy was recommended by Thomas
Well,
Norman.
yeah, he specifically asked us to review it.
This should have been a movie we had rented 20-something years ago, but oh well.
And, of course, the recommendations list. I was pretty sure Frankenhooker would because, I'd seen it, and I figured we'd both love it.
Yeah, the first 10-15 minutes, I was not thinking it was going to go the way it did, and it was very, very
and knowing
reaction.
And knowing Thomas's sensibilities, I was pretty hopeful about Gitchy.
Yeah, me too.
You can also email us at zombietakeout@gmail.com or leave us a voicemail at 414-368-ZTO1 or for the alphanumerically challenged.
They can go to market.
414-368-9861. Of course, always remember that you'll always be calling from the middle of Milwaukee, and until next time, always remember, never forget, wherever you go in life,
there you are.
Awesome. Utterly awesome.
Bruce Sardi on Facebook said, yes, but one has to wonder about the relationship between this and the... Let me take that again because I think I pushed the S too hard.